Realizing the situation was escalating, Ling Tong impatiently commanded in a dull tone, "Liang, kill him." Upon hearing the order, Liang obediently responded, then opened wide his mouth full of sharp, jagged teeth, ready to devour Zhu Wuyan. Zhu Wuyan remained silent, whispering. Therefore below, Marshal Marcus Marshall exclaimed in shock, "War God noble person, hurry up, urgently call Wu Yan." In the most critical moment, Wu Yan awakened. He swung the Tang Gu fan, swiftly striking straight at Liang's face, causing him to gradually dissipate. It turned out that the reason he was silent was due to his calculations. Thus he shouted to Wu Hong Marshal, "So 100,000 acres of land. I alone cannot farm all of it. I need to increase the workforce." Down here, everyone was dumbstruck, then in unison exclaimed, "Look, Liang is gradually dissipating, and they are panic-stricken, shouting." He got killed again. Even Ling Tong was astonished by the outcome of the battle. Wu Yan continued to emphasize to him, "Marshal Marcus noble person, you are right, 100,000 acres of land. I alone cannot cultivate it all." The man was dazed, stuttering as he didn't know how to respond. Then Wu Yan calmly replied, "I am who I am, and I want a cow." Marshal Marcus Marshall was taken aback, replying, "Senior, is that all? Your status could ask for more. And yet you are so simple-minded, asking for just one cow, and you are not even willing to demand more. I wouldn't even dare to ask for something so small in my dreams." Marshal Marcus Marshall continued with concern, "No, even if I gave you one cow, you still couldn't manage it all." At this moment, Wu Yan straightforwardly said, "Then I want 2 cows." He generously replied, "I will give you 1,000 cows." Hearing this, Wu Yan joyfully made the deal. Betrayal, what an absurdity! The soul fragment of Liang that was dissipating suddenly realized that the reason he hadn't retaliated earlier was not because he couldn't fight back, nor because he felt helpless due to dying in a miserable state. No, he was thinking about how to guard 100,000 acres of farmland. Ling Tong stood up from his seat, speaking resignedly, "Haha, forget it." In his left chest, something stirred. He arrogantly acknowledged, "You can kill me, proving you are indeed the war god." Ling Tong, at the peak of the Dio principle's realm, summoned a demon eye and casually continued, "Then you deserve for me to take action." Marshal Marcus Marshall, upon seeing the object Ling Tong summoned, immediately changed his expression, exclaiming, "That is the demon eye, which 1,000 years ago was used to break the banishment of the war god Abyss." Mao Man, astonished, asked, "What is the demon eye?" Marshal Marcus Marshall recalled and explained to her, "Legend has it that, back then, the war god banished the demon clan into the magical barrier of the war god Abyss. This magical barrier was a banishment that even the peak Dio principle's realm could not break. As a result, even if some demon clan members survived, they could not escape." Ling Tong unleashed a surge of power from the demon eye, ignoring Wu Hong Marshall's words. But 1,000 years ago, the demon child needed but one strike from the demon eye to shatter the banishment of the war god Abyss, allowing the demon clan to see the sun. He laughed loudly, joyfully asserting, "Back then, after breaking the banishment, I slept for 1,000 years. Now I have awakened, human race." Ling Tong gathered all his strength to unleash a raging demon wind, aimed directly at Zhu Wuyan. He triumphantly shouted, "No more chances." The ghostly wind surged towards Zhu Wuyan. Witnessing it approach, he was stunned and dazed, not knowing what to do. Zhu Wuyan chose to take that attack, collapsing to the ground in front of the astonished crowd. Marshal Marcus Marshall shouted, filled with concern, "War god noble person, quickly, hurry, call Wu Yan." The system immediately displayed a notification on Chen Zhuan's side. "Warning, the younger generation of the owner has died. Mission failed due to the end of the 3 trials. You will not be able to progress to the next continent." Qin Zhuan was surrounded by black energy, and the soul recovery system hastily offered advice. "But the person does not need to be angry. I will choose the second option for you." Qin Zhuan breathed a sigh of relief and focused on flipping the burnt chicken wings. "Not at all, I only grilled 1 chicken wing closed, why should I be angry?" the system asked in surprise. Your young generation has already died. Why aren't you angry? King Xuan blew a few times to lessen the smoke from the charred chicken wings and casually replied, "Don't rush, the emperor is not in a hurry, but the eunuch is. That's the war god body. One must know that the war god body is indestructible armor." Indeed, as Chen Chuan said, Zhu Wuyan was hit but still got back up steadily. He quickly grabbed his spear and charged to counterattack. Ling Tong was astonished by this event. Zhu Wuyan bravely declared, "The war god is immortal," and then like lightning struck a blow that pierced through Ling Tong's chest. He looked at the gaping hole in his chest in shock, speechless. Zhu Wuyan calmly closed his eyes, his entire body enveloped by a divine aura. Marshal Marcus Marshall and Mao Man both stared in amazement. What? The war god didn't die, he can regenerate. Meanwhile, Chen Xuan calmly savored the chicken wings while explaining the mechanism to the system. As long as the indestructible armor is intact, Zhu Wuyan's body will regenerate. Killing a Dao Principle's realm is naturally easy. Everything is in my grasp, he sighed inwardly. But this grilled food is really hard to eat. At that moment, Zhu Wuyan still hadn't regained his composure. Seeing him, Mao Man excitedly exclaimed, "Haha, great. Wuyan is fine." At the same time, Marshal Marcus Marshall was equally exhilarated, saying, "Truly worthy of the war god, the body can regenerate, and with one strike, he has dealt with the demonic spirit king." In contrast to that amazement, Zhu Wuyan calmly turned to fly down, cheerfully saying, "Haha, after fighting, I'll go home to garden." Suddenly, Ling Tong charged in from nowhere and grabbed his throat. At that moment, Zhu Wuyan gritted his teeth and asked, "Why aren't you dead yet?" Hearing that question, Ling Tong laughed arrogantly and mockingly replied, "Why?" Immediately he donned his armor and arrogantly responded, "Just take a look, don't you know why?" Zhu Wuyan was choked to the point of gasping, stammering, "Could it be that you have it too?" Then he lifted Zhu Wuyan up into the air, his hand clenched tightly into a powerful fist. Indeed, he was also a possessor of the war god body. His other hand created a massive beam of light. In that situation, Zhu Wuyan couldn't help but be astonished as he saw his treasure forcibly separated from his body. "My war god body has been pulled out," Zhu Wuyan exclaimed, his gaze filled with panic. After pulling Zhu Wuyan's war god body out, Ling Tong triumphantly raised it high, laughing heartily. "Haha, 100,000 years ago, I was lucky enough to obtain a shard of the war god. Thanks to that shard, I have lived for 100,000 years." Ling Tong's eyes swept towards Zhu Wuyan, who was firmly held in his grasp. He continued, "And Divine Presence once said that the true war god would appear today. My purpose this time is to find the remaining remnants." Saying that, Ling Tong began to fuse the war god body he had just acquired with his own. The joy on his face was undeniable as he exclaimed, "Just now was merely to attract your war god body, intentionally making you reveal a flaw." Zhu Wuyan stared wide-eyed in astonishment at that scene, his heart filled with panic as he thought, "He is merging his body with my war god body." Ling Tong had completed the fusion. His entire body was surrounded by an unusual force. Ling Tong shouted, his voice echoing, "Now the war god body has been completely fused." The power emanating from the divine presence was so strong that it sent Zhu Wuyan flying away. Zhu Wuyan was startled and screamed, "Eh!" Ling Tong looked at himself in delight, then said, "I have become the new war god." His whole body radiated with an aura, as if rejuvenated in his youth. Now Ling Tong had reached the realm of the first grade Dao Emperor. Marshal Marcus Marshall and those around them were dumbfounded by the spectacle that had just occurred. One person among them shouted, "What? Ling Tong has broken through to the Dao Emperor realm." Suddenly, Mao Man leaped up from the ground, rushing towards Zhu Wuyan to catch him as he was being flung away. She called out, "Wuyan." At that moment, Ling Tong began to summon the elements. He spread his arms wide, causing the space around him to boil. Clouds swirled, intertwining with pebbles and falling leaves. Ling Tong spoke, "All right, you human race people." A giant, bloodshot eye appeared in the sky, with veins of blood running rampant, and the pupil glowing like a flame. threatening all those standing below. Ling Tong shouted, "Die!" Everyone was terrified, fleeing in panic. Marcus Marshall stood firm, maintaining a powerful defensive stance. He spoke in a serious tone. A demon eye of such a level, if released, could destroy the entire western region with just one strike. The fire from the dark pupil of the giant eye shot through the air, aiming straight for the fleeing crowd. A raging sea of fire surged, engulfing everything, causing everyone to panic and trample over each other in their escape. They screamed, "We're definitely going to die." Unexpectedly, that ferocious fire was reflected from the sky, as if a gigantic mirror had appeared in the space. The flames ricocheted and changed direction, piercing straight into the very pupil of the giant eye. Just looking at it was enough to make one's eyes ache. Ling Tong was struck by the counterattack, spitting out blood, his eyes wide with astonishment. Mao Man, Marcus Marshall, and Zhu Wuyan exclaimed in unison, "What?" Ling Tong, furious, shouted, "Who dares to challenge me?" At that moment, Chen Chuan stepped out from the chaos, twirling something in his hand. He laughed and replied, "Haha, I heard you were also from 100,000 years ago. Surely my title is still fresh in your memory." Chen Chuan floated in midair, holding a skewered piece of grilled meat that he had yet to eat in his other hand. He gently introduced himself. "I am mystical heavenly emperor, Chen Chuan." At this moment, Zhu Wuyan was fainting in Mao Man's arms, silently thinking about the comment in front of him. Ling Tong, upon hearing this, was startled and looked at Chen Xuan before repeating, "Chen Xuan, the mystical heavenly emperor who was invincible 100,000 years ago." In Ling Tong's mind, he thought, "This person might be capable of receiving my attack. It's very likely, but wasn't the mystical heavenly emperor already dead?" Chen Xuan looked at Ling Tong and spoke, his voice cold. "Ha, I didn't come here to help the younger generations, but simply out of curiosity. You human beings, why did you lead the demon clan to invade the human race?" After saying this, Chen Chuan tossed the still intact skewer of grilled meat aside and continued, "If you don't speak, I will continue to take action. After all, I wasn't raised to casually throw away a piece of meat." The piece of meat flew past Ling Tong's face, surprising him. Ling Tong thought to himself, "So strong. Whether he is the mystical heavenly emperor or not, it's best not to strike back yet, because the human race deserves to die." Ling Tong dodged the piece of meat and turned back to smile, his voice full of insinuation. "Because 100,000 years ago, when I was still human." He then began to tell about his past. 100,000 years ago, the scene was chaotic, everyone desperately fleeing, including Ling Tong. Loud screams echoed, "Demon Clan, the Demon Clan has invaded, everyone run." Young Ling Tong, in the shape of a child, fearfully called out for his mother. "Wait." He continued recounting, "Back then, when the Demon Clan invaded, I fled with the human race from the pursuit of the Demon Clan. But the human race saw me as a worthless piece of trash, without any cultivation at all. While fleeing, one heartless person pushed me down and said, 'Get out.'" Ling Tong paused for a moment, his gaze darkened. "They decided to make me a sacrificial pawn to protect themselves." A group of adults spoke up. "A useless person like you is just wasting the resources of the human race." The others rushed to say that I should stay here to hold off the Demon Clan, in even greater pain. Ling Tong sighed, his eyes igniting with a pain that was hard to hide. "Even my own mother turned her back on me, her eyes filled with guilt as I reached out to her. The name of the useless waste that cannot cultivate, if you dare to follow me, I will kill you." Ling Tong recalled those words when the Demon Clan was hot on his heels. At that moment, he was about to be killed by the demons. Behind him, a massive group of demons was charging forward, while he lay helpless on the ground, despairingly staring ahead. But then the war god took action, Ling Tong continued, his voice mixed with resentment. The ground beneath his feet suddenly split apart, causing the demons to fall one by one into the abyss, and he was dragged down with them. The war god opened the war god abyss to save those detestable people, but also left me behind. At that time, Ling Tong felt an overwhelming sense of pity and hatred. In his heart, he repeated a sentence, so hate, so hate. devoid of strength, his eyes gazed into the void, in despair. At the moment I thought I had been abandoned by the world, lying in despair, suddenly I saw the war god standing on the water and saying he wanted to fight. Ling Tong continued, his voice tinged with sadness. He thought that the war god had once again given him hope. At that moment, an object covered with a layer of golden might fell into the deep water. Ling Tong reached out to grab it, and from that object came a voice. "Wanna fight?" The object continued, "If you don't fight, you will die." Ling Tong, who was still a child, then fearfully repeated, "If I don't fight, I will die." Around him were the corpses of the demon beasts swirling in the water. Images of the past kept flooding back into his mind, the demon beasts surrounding and engulfing him. In his subconscious, he kept murmuring, "Not fighting, will die." He thought he would finally die, but then an inner strength erupted within him. A powerful feeling surged. "Anyone who dares to harm me must die." Finally, Ling Tong's memories closed, and the story stopped there. Ling Tong exuded a powerful aura. He looked at Chen Xuan and spoke. "It is only because of the guidance of War God that I have been able to survive until now. Therefore, I have internalized the will of War God and fought to eliminate the entire human race." After hearing his pitiful story, Chen Xuan laughed heartily. "Haha, I remember now, it's not as you said. I was at the scene." Ling Tong's expression darkened slightly. "Hemph, you were at the scene." Chen Xuan nodded confidently in response. "Yes, listen here." He then began to recount his story from 100,000 years ago. 100,000 years ago, I wanted to make a dish called hot pot, but at that time, there were no prepackaged ingredients for hot pot. Chen Xuan recalled, his eyes sparkling with joy at the thought of the past, then continued. At that time, the spirit clan was thriving and abundant with spiritual herb, so I borrowed a bit of material. In Chen Xuan's memory, he was stealing a bit of spiritual herb and running away, with countless members of the spirit clan chasing after him. They shouted, "Damn it, thief, return our ancestral treasure." Chen Xuan thought to himself, "Oh no, I've been discovered." But the spirit clan had pursued him for 3 days relentlessly. He inwardly lamented, "It's just a bit of ragged stuff, why chase after me for so long?" Looking back at them, Chen Xuan nervously said, "So I created a no-fly zone to stop them." He thought to himself, "What a hassle." After that, he cast a spell to split the ground apart and shouted loudly, "Break apart." At that moment, my actions were so large that a part of the war god might have fallen out. Chen Xuan continued, his gaze slightly sparkling as if reminiscing about a distant memory. "The war god's helmet might have fallen from me." Ling Tong listened, chuckled softly, and replied, "Ridiculous. You say that War God's action caused the dark chasm to open just because of your whim?" He paused and then added, "Moreover, you left out one detail. Back then, War God told me, not fighting means death. Someone like you could never say such words." Hearing Ling Tong's words, Chen Xuan placed a hand on his forehead, his expression showing frustration as he replied, "That statement is indeed something I said, but the truth is you misunderstood." Ling Tong paused for a moment, his gaze serious. He continued, his tone casual yet resolute. "Let's go back in time to when Chen Xuan had just opened the War God Abyss. At that time, he was running for his life while holding a bunch of spiritual herbs he had just stolen. Suddenly, he stopped and shouted, 'Crap! I've got the ingredients for hot pot, but what about the sauce?' King Xuan, lacking an essential item, was so enraged that he threw the pile of spiritual herbs everywhere. A single stalk accidentally fell into his hands, and then Chen Xuan shouted, 'Damn it, when I eat hot pot, I absolutely must have soy sauce, or I'll feel like I'm cursed to death, and without it, I'll die.' As he recounted this, Ling Tong glanced at Zhu Wuyan and those around him, smiled lightly, stroked his hair, and continued, 'And that's the story from Chen Xuan's past that led to your misunderstanding.' After hearing this, Zhu Wuyan was bewildered, struggling to process the information. He stammered, 'Is that really the case? Honestly, I'm at a loss for words.' Ling Tong could no longer contain himself. The flame of anger within him erupted, blazing like a torch. He shouted, 'Insolence! The war god's legacy is the belief I've upheld for 100,000 years, and I will not allow you to insult him. All three, Marshal Marcus Marshall, Zhu Wuyan, and Mao Man, looked up in unison, their astonished gazes fixed. They simultaneously exclaimed, "Look, up in the sky! Ling Tong has transformed into the war god form, towering 100 times larger than Chen Chuan." A voice murmured from behind, full of skepticism. "Is it really the war god?" With eyes blazing with anger, Ling Tong shouted loudly, "Annihilate it!" The strength of his attack caused the earth and rocks to combine with the dust, swirling up into a cloud. He aimed directly at Chen Xuan, preparing to strike. Next came a punch that tore through the sky, descending straight toward Chen Xuan. The heavens and earth seemed ready to tremble before the might of the war god form. The ground beneath everyone's feet cracked open. Marshal Marcus Marshall staggered and looked down at his feet. Both he and Zhu Wuyan, along with Mao Man, were equally astonished, exclaiming, "So strong! The strength is incredible!" Zhu Wuyan cried out in horror. "Dead," Chen Chuan thought anxiously in his heart. He could sense that this was the strongest move of the war god form. That fraud might not be able to withstand it. At this moment, Chen Chuan stood still, regardless of Ling Tong launching a massive punch toward him. He shouted loudly, "Die for me!" Chen Xuan grimaced, looking uncomfortable. He thought to himself, "Isn't it just annoying? Recently, no one believes what I say." Ling Tong's punch came crashing down, but at that moment, Chen Chuan had vanished, quickly camouflaging himself into the dense smoke. Suddenly, he appeared in front of Ling Tong and delivered a stinging slap that left Ling Tong shocked and unable to react in time. What everyone could see was that Chen Xuan had transformed his hand into a gigantic one, swinging hard with a slap to the cheek of the war god form, causing him to stagger backward. The war god form fell behind Chen Xuan's overwhelming strength, gradually dissolving into nothingness. The three, Wu Hu Marshal, Zhu Wuyan, and Mao Man, standing below witnessed this scene and collectively exclaimed in disbelief. The sight of the war god form left the three of them unable to believe their eyes bulging with astonishment. Zhu Wuyan shouted. The war god was obliterated by a single slap. At this moment, Chen Xuan looked at Ling Tong and pointed at him, saying, "I tell the truth. Don't believe me and I might get angry." He is still in shock. Chen Xuan rubbed his cheek with his hand, not knowing what else to say in his heart. Finally, he realized that the person in front of him was not an ordinary individual. He asked in surprise, "Are you really the mystical heavenly emperor?" His heart was filled with deep contemplation. A war god so powerful was easily defeated by him. Aside from the Yuan deity of years past, who else could it be? While he was fiercely battling Chen Xuan, suddenly Ling Tong dashed off somewhere swiftly, leaving him standing still in confusion as he looked on. It turned out that Ling Tong was incredibly frightened and was running away to save his life. In his heart, he thought, running is the right choice. The power of the mystical heavenly emperor is too frightening. If he doesn't run, he will only meet his death. Zhu Wuyan was taken aback by the scene before him. He shouted, "Even a demonic spirit has to run away." In his mind, he wondered if that person was truly a grandmaster. Suddenly, he knelt down on the ground, bowed his head in respect to Chen Xuan, and said, "Grandmaster, if you hear me calling you, you may not understand what's going on, and just look back." He stood up and pleaded, "Grandmaster, please eliminate Ling Tong. Otherwise, with Ling Tong's hatred towards the human race, he will undoubtedly come back." Upon hearing those words from Zhu Wuyan, Chen Chuan couldn't help but smile in response. "Oh, you brat, have you finally come to believe that I am the Grandmaster?" After that, he turned to leave and continued, "But the Grandmaster isn't here to save you. I came just to see the big thing I overturned back then." His words left the kneeling young man behind him baffled as to what he was trying to convey. Seeing him preparing to leave, Zhu Wuyan was anxious and quickly reached out, shouting loudly, "Grandmaster, this is urgent, do not speak carelessly. This place is called War God Abyss, founded by the war god from back then, and it means extraordinary things for us human race." He continued to plead, "Please deal with Ling Tong first." His words made Chen Xuan frown in displeasure. He turned to look at the young man with a chilling gaze, his red eyes seeming ready to teach him a lesson. He asked, "Haha, do you still think the Grandmaster is deceiving you?" Zhu Wuyan saw him so angry and quickly replied, "Grandmaster, I believe in you, but please don't pretend to be war god anymore." Ken Xuan was no longer in the mood to be angry and turned to fly away. He said, "Enough, I have been in seclusion for 100,000 years. Does the world no longer believe in the reputation of the mystical heavenly emperor?" Zhu Wuyan still knelt on the ground, confused as he looked after him. At this moment, Chen Chuan continued to speak irritably. "Then I will prove it to the world." Suddenly, two gigantic hands appeared from the sky, clenching into fists, and then brought down a tremendous blow onto the ground. Ken Chuan's voice rang out, "Once and for all, who truly is?" He clasped his hands together, preparing to unleash his magic, and continued, "The one who stands at the pinnacle of this continent." On the ground, a long crack appeared, resulting from that mighty punch. Dust and debris filled the air, and the three people, Marshal Marcus Marshall, Zhu Wuyan, and Mao Man, who witnessed the scene were all astonished, mouths agape. They all shouted, "The war god Abyss has been reassembled." At that moment, everyone understood who was responsible for the war god Abyss. On the other hand, Ling Tong, who was fleeing, suddenly felt the ground shaking. In his heart, he wondered, why is the earth moving like that? At this moment, Ling Tong finally realized that he had misunderstood the words of divine presence. The rock walls were gradually closing in, seemingly wanting to crush Ling Tong into thin slices. He was terrified and used both hands to try and push the rock walls apart, shouting, "The war god Abyss is shrinking." Now he finally understood what divine presence had said. The war god reappearing in the human realm was not just him or Zhu Wuyan alone. He was squeezed so tightly that he spat blood and cried out in pain. At that moment, he silently thought, from start to finish, it was only about the mystical heavenly emperor. Chen Xuan secretly thought to himself, "It is indeed good that I pretended to be provoked into action. This reason isn't bad." At that instant, a system panel appeared and displayed the words, "I knew it all along." At the edge of the world of the Hongming continent, on a small rock, Mao Mo, looking like a mad scientist, was joyfully shouting. He laughed loudly and said, "Haha, after spending 100 years, my research has finally confirmed it. It turns out that..." Mao Mo was so happy he was about to cry. He discovered that the land shifted every year according to a law at a speed of several inches, which corresponded to energy balance. Therefore, he could prove that this world was not created by a deity. He looked up at the sky and shouted, "I must name my discovery the study of harmonics. This will definitely change the world." Suddenly, the rock he was standing on shifted an entire 100 yards, leaving him in shock at this change. His eyes bulged out in disbelief. In pain, he collapsed, his face dejected and gloomy. He wondered, how could this be? How could the land suddenly move 100 yards? Eventually he wept and lamented, "No, the study of harmonics does not exist anymore. This world has a deity."